Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today, we are back with another tier list. Today, we're going to be going over the junglers from the West. A combined tier list for the LCS and the LEC. If all 20 of these teams got in a league together, we're ranking all the junglers from top to bottom, from S to F. We have a D tier in here today as well. Just because there's so many different players, it's easier to break it up if you have an extra tier thrown in there, just since we have some more faces, and you don't want it to be all like scrunched up. You want it to be some clear divide. So this is really interesting. It should be really fun. We did the mid lane one the other day, and that video kind of popped off. It did pretty well. So it seems like you guys want to see more of this. So we're gonna run through the rest of the positions as well. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the start of the LCS season in like 10 days. Then the LEC season starts the week after that. So we're getting closer and closer. People are getting hyped up and excited. The content's starting to pop off. And yeah, hopefully this is a fun video as well that you guys do enjoy. I'm gonna be giving you guys my thoughts and opinions, but I'd love to hear your guys' as well. But before we get into that, I just want to say real quick a word from today's sponsor, which is Draft Buff. They have a clean new update to the website. They're doing big things over there. I think it looks really dope. Fantasy leagues for your favorite esports on the App Store, on Google Play, and in the browser right now. Challenge the community with unique fantasy games. They have leagues, they have Draft Royale, they have brackets, and you can play with over 100,000 fans across the world. Again, like I said, we have the LCS, LEC, LCK seasons all coming up very soon. So if you want to get started playing fantasy esports on Draft Buff today, make sure you check out the link in the description below. Use code IAMGERM. I would appreciate it a ton, and so would they. Shout out to Draft Buff. With that being said, let's get right into this. So starting out with Blabber in the jungle, I am going to be putting him at a very high B tier. This is a guy who was an MVP in the spring split of the LCS, but in the summer started to look a little bit more inconsistent. This guy can be seen as pretty meta dependent, pretty meta reliant, but he is very good when he's on, and he's, you know, still young, still relatively inexperienced, especially compared to some of the his like jungle counterparts and stuff. This guy has a ton of talent, and if he can put it all together, his ceiling is an S tier. Even when you're comparing it to the top LEC junglers, he can be at that level, and at times in his career he has been, but again, it's working on the consistency. Part of it was maybe that Cloud9 as a whole didn't really work out a ton, especially towards the end of the summer split into the summer playoffs. Part of it was Blabber's fault, but it can't all be blamed on him. I think he is a beast. I think he has a ton of talent, ton of hype. I hope he's not another one of these NA junglers who hits these high highs then flares out. I hope he comes back this year and is a beast. He's going to pair up very well with Perkz. We'll see how he pairs up with Fudge. Their team should be great again. Blabber, I could see him as a low A tier, but I'm going to put him as high B. And we might shift this around a little bit as we start putting some of the other players in too, but I think that's a good starting point for him. Next up, we have Dardoch, the Dignitas jungler. This is actually a guy I got to see play a ton last year. He started out on TSM. I watched, you know, I've seen every TSM game ever, probably multiple times. And he was not very good last year. I guess he did do a little bit better with Dignitas than he did do with TSM. But sometimes it can be a little bit easier to stand out on kind of a worse team, a team that's not doing as well. I think this guy at one point in his career was very good, very hyped up, actually pretty talented. But those days are far behind him. He's a D tier for me. I wouldn't go as far as to put him in the F, but I don't think he was very good last year. I expect him to be the same, if not worse, this year, because it seems like he has been on a pretty consistent decline for a while now. Next up, Svenskeren. I am going to put Svenskeren in the high C tier. He might end up being a low B tier again. We're going to see how the rest of this list shapes up, see what I'm feeling. Svenskeren is a guy who's very good. Again, a former MVP candidate, one of the best players in the LCS at times, but just one of the best junglers pretty consistently, but he has not looked as good on Evil Geniuses since he's not on like the best roster in the LCS anymore. Obviously, he went from being on TSM to being on Cloud9, and those were always very top teams. And then he just hasn't looked as great when his team around him hasn't been as good. That doesn't make him any worse, but again, that does mean maybe his best days are behind him, and maybe we're on the decline a little bit. Maybe he'll bounce back big this year. They have obviously Impact coming in the top lane, Ignar. It'll be interesting to see how the synergies develop there and how everything starts to work out. But Svenskeren, very solid. But I just think when you put the LCS and LEC together, he wouldn't be one of the guys that's like really standing out to you. I think he'd be pretty middle of the pack, pretty meh. Next up, we have Dan. I think this guy's F tier. I'm really not excited for him. He's one of the, in my opinion, one of the least exciting new junglers coming into the LEC. I'm not super hyped up for him. I don't have very high expectations for him. And yeah, I just don't even have a ton to say there. Next up, we can talk about Closer, who I am also going to throw into the B tier. I'm actually going to move Blabber up to the A tier. But I'm going to keep Blabber down here. I think Closer is good. I think people might even overrate him a little bit, as crazy as that sounds. He is very good, and he's very solid. But I don't know if he necessarily has taken that next step up to being super great. He's very consistent. He's very good, but I don't think I've seen him be like amazing too often. And I don't mean to like shit on him or anything. I'm saying he is very good. But I feel like people in the community maybe overrate him a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how he steps up this year. Also, when you're comparing it to other junglers, obviously mid jung synergy is really important as far as jungle support synergy being important as well. This guy's gonna have Damonte in the mid lane, and who he has his support might be tough for him to match up in some of those like skirmishes and stuff, which might lead to him having a little bit of a worse year, a little bit of worse stats. I am a fan of Closer. I just wish people would kind of chill a little bit and let him grow into his own. But I have him as like a low B tier headed into this kind of Western jungler tier list. Next up, this guy, I honestly still don't know how to pronounce his name. I've heard people say Tynex. I've heard people say Tinks. So I don't know. What I heard is Tynex, and I think that's what Leaguepedia says as well too. This guy I think is decent. I think he will be solid. I'm a little bit hyped up for him, but again, a young jungler coming into LEC, it's going to be tough to succeed right away, but especially a young jungler coming into like a Western Super League, and some people would say that the LCS wouldn't make that too much more difficult, but I don't know if he's as hyped up as some of the other players. He could be good this year, maybe he's going to be great, but I'm tempering my expectations a little bit. I would start him out in the D tier, but you know, I think you should come in with all kind of more younger, inexperienced players with a little bit of tempered expectations, unless there's really a reason otherwise. But yeah, I think he's good. We'll see how he does, but I want to keep things under control. Next up, we have Aloya, who I am going to put into the C tier. I think this guy has a chance to come into the LEC and actually be pretty good right away. One, he's pretty hyped up, pretty talented. It's going to be tough for him to replace Shadow, because Shadow was super good with Mad Lions. But he's in a position to succeed. People are really excited for Armut in the top lane. Humanoid, one of the best mid laners in the LEC. Kaiser, one of the best supports. Again, jungle mid, jungle support. Those synergies are so strong. If you're a jungler with a good mid laner and good support, you can really stand out. And those are positions you want to be in. Those are positions that are going to allow you to succeed. So yes, while Aloya is maybe a little bit younger, a little bit more inexperienced and stuff, I think he's in a great situation, and I think that could really help him develop quickly. And I think he could have a pretty big season in 2021. So I think starting him out in the C tier is not a bad idea at all. Next up, we have Razork, who I'm not as excited for. I know some people have like tried telling me, like, oh, this guy's actually pretty decent. I'm sleeping on him a little bit, but I'm not that excited for him. I don't think he is that great from what I've seen. Yeah, I'm not that excited for him. He maybe could be like a C tier. Maybe I am underrating him a little bit. But I would take some of these guys over him. We'll have to see. Again, Misfits is kind of a weird team for me. They're going to be towards the bottom of the LEC. But they do have some interesting pieces, obviously, with guys like Vander, guys like Kabe, and maybe they'll kind of surprise people. But I don't really see them as a playoff team. I don't really see Razork as like a top 5 or 6 jungler or anything. So it's tough for me to put him too high. But yeah, I think he's a D tier. Then we have Xerxes, who, man, it's hard to rate this guy as well. I think I would put him in the C tier. Some people are really shitting on this guy right now. Some people would be like, oh, put him in D tier, put him in low D tier. Some people would say F tier. He's coming off not a great split in the LEC. But I do think he still has some potential and promise here. We've seen him previously be so good, and he's still young. I think just because he had a bad year, just because he had a bad summer split, I think it's a little too early to write him off, and I think the League of Legends community does this often. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this guy, just for whatever reason, is just done, and he's bad, and he's just gonna come over to NA and collect a check. but I am willing to give him another chance. I think Immortals buying low on this guy is a good decision. I think he has a chance to come into the league and be pretty good. I could even see him maybe potentially playing his way into like a B tier over the course of the season, but I don't think Immortals is going to be that good, so I don't want to go too crazy with it. But yeah, Xerxes I think is a good opportunity, good situation of buying low on a player with some talent, with some promise. Maybe he'll regain his old heights, maybe not, but I think there's at least an opportunity there, which, you know, I think that's a good pickup for Immortals. We have Jose Deodo, who is coming into the league. I have him in the C tier as well. People are so excited for this guy. He has an insane, huge fan base internationally, so well known. He's coming off a very good Worlds performance, and obviously he played well enough to get picked up by an LCS team, which is awesome. Great for him. That FlyQuest team looks like a ton of fun as well. Ton of new young pieces. They're building around Licorice. It'll be interesting to see how good Palafox is, how good Diamond is, because again, those will directly influence how well Jose Deodo is able to do, but I'm excited for him. I think he's going to be a very fun personality, very fun jungler, and I think FlyQuest overall is going to be a fun team. Again, I don't know if he's going to be able to break into that top tier of the LCS right away, but I think he can be very good right away. So I think starting out in the C tier is not bad at all, but I would still maybe rather have guys like Svenskeren ahead of him. Next, we have Inspired, who I think is an absolute beast. That's an easy A tier for me. This guy is really good, really consistent, just a beast for this Rogue team, who I think is going to be a good team in 2021. Obviously, they got the upgrade in the top lane with Oduwamne. We'll see how bringing in Trimby for Vander works out. We're still not exactly sure, but obviously Rogue must believe in Trimby a lot and think that he's going to come in and be able to be very successful. But the core of that roster staying together with Inspired, Larssen, and Hans Sama, they've all been great. They should all be great again. So Inspired is an easy A tier jungler for me. Then we have, we'll go with Gilius next, who I would have to put into this like B tier as well. This kind of like little lump of junglers here. What actually I might do, yeah, I would put Gilius in this like B tier. I think I would have him a little bit ahead of like Blabber and Closer right now. But Gilius is a guy who's very up and down. We saw him be very good with Schalke, especially during their magical run, obviously. But then again, things didn't quite work out. You know, they still weren't able to make it to Worlds. They still, you know, didn't make it out of that playoffs, obviously. And then they, Mad Lions goes on to not even look that good at Worlds. So there was still some questions there about Schalke. We don't need to overreact too much, but obviously Gilius was a big part of turning Schalke's season around, so that cannot be underrated. But I think keeping him in the B tier is not a bad place at all. You know, when he's on, for sure, he's A tier, but can he consistently do it? Is he going to be able to do it again this year? Is that whole Schalke team going to be able to do it this year? I think it's a fair question to ask, but I think having him ahead of some of the other guys, like Blabber, who's also inconsistent, who's also a little bit up and down, having him ahead of there, I think is totally fair. But I could see people maybe debating that one a little bit. Next up, we have Zanzarah, the new jungler for Astralis. This is another one of the guys who, this guy's interesting. He has some talent. I have him in that D tier, that clump of like younger European junglers that I'm maybe not as excited for, that I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be able to come into the league and do. He's an interesting one. We'll see how he's able to play out. Some people there's really mixed opinions on him right now, but again, that Astralis team I think is going to be rough. So good luck to him. Nukeduck in the mid lane with Promiscu support. I don't know. It's going to be tough for him to succeed. We'll see how he does. Iconic, the new jungler for Golden Guardians. He is skipping over the academy scene, trying to go straight to the LCS from Amateur League. I think that's tough to do. I'm surprised, just as I think a lot of other people are, that this guy has a starting position in the LCS, and I don't think he's going to be able to come in and do very well. I think there is levels to this, and I think he needs to kind of do it in order. I think he's going to kind of get jungle diffed a lot pretty often. I think it's going to be a rough season for him, and I think I would probably have him as the lowest rated jungler in this entire Western League headed into 2021. But you know, we haven't really seen him in academy, so maybe he's just a beast. That could happen too, but I think it is way more unlikely. And if you're just kind of playing these things out on paper, you got to start him out in the F tier. He's got to work his way up. Then we have Broxah, who I would actually put towards the end of the C tier. I'd have him above Xerxes, because yes, Broxah did not have a great season in 20. This might even be a little bit too low. I might even have him like here in terms of C tier, because yes, Broxah did not have a great 2020, but he wasn't terrible. He just wasn't what Team Liquid needed. Team Liquid was looking to win titles, to get out of groups at Worlds, and Broxah kind of proved that he's probably not that jungler anymore. But that doesn't mean he's terrible. I think he's going to go to CLG and be solid, maybe even surprisingly good to some people, especially the people who are really, really underrating him, really, really trash talking him right now. But yeah, obviously he's getting a big downgrade in roster going from Team Liquid to CLG, so that could impact his play a little bit and stuff too. There's two ways it could go. He could come out really, really motivated and want to prove people wrong, or he could be really discouraged and just kind of, this can start to be the downward spiral in his career. We'll see how that works out. Then next up we have Skeens, who I guess I would put at the top of the D tier. You could maybe even... I guess you could have him here in the C tier, and that wouldn't even be too crazy. He's a real solid guy for Vitality. Vitality's kind of a weird team for me. They just have a lot of solid players. They don't have anyone who too excites me a bunch. I know Comp and LeBron people are really excited for. Leechsa, obviously, people are excited for as well. But to me, none of them are like top in their position or towards the top or even too exciting. And Skeens kind of falls in like a similar category for me. Next, we have Spica, who I would put right here in the B tier. I think at times in the summer split and at times in 2020 he was better than Blabber, but I think Blabber has obviously shown higher highs, even though Blabber's maybe been a little bit more inconsistent. I really like Spica. I love his personality, I love his attitude, and I love his just playmaking as well. I think at Worlds he was kind of a bright spot for TSM, even though they went 0-6. I think this guy is an awesome piece to build around for the future. I'm excited to have him on TSM, and I think he's really, really good, and I do think he's better. I would take him over Closer, but I'm not sure if I would take him over Blabber, so it'd be close, but I think throwing him in that B tier, not a bad place at all. Then we have the two big guys from Europe. Obviously, we have Jankos, easy S tier. Don't even have to explain it. He's been a beast. He's going to continue to be a beast. G2 is going to be an awesome team this year. And then Selfmade as well. The debate is really who you would rather have between these guys. And again, everyone keeps saying it. It is so meta dependent. But I think Selfmade honestly has a chance to really, really pop off this year, because obviously they brought in Nisqy to be this facilitative style mid laner to really enable their bigger carries like Upset, like Selfmade. So I think Selfmade is going to be set up to have some insane carry games. It will be dependent on what exactly the meta is, what champions are playable, how strong carry junglers are, how strong the jungle position is in general, where I think Jankos is much less meta dependent. Jankos can be good on different champions in different styles, but they're both going to be the top two junglers this year. They're going to be insane. They're going to be better than anyone else in Europe, better than anyone else in North America, and their teams are both going to be great because of these two guys. These guys are absolute stars, and there's nobody else you could really put in the S tier. Whether you have Jankos first or Selfmade first, that's up for debate. But both these guys are awesome. And then finally, we have Santorin, who I have as the best jungler in the LCS. I would put him in A tier. I think he was very great, very consistent for FlyQuest last year, an awesome integral part of how they were able to make it to back-to-back finals, and how they were able to do decent at Worlds for a team headed to Worlds for the first time. Obviously, he's getting a big upgrade in roster moving over to Team Liquid. I think he's going to fit into that Team Liquid team amazing, because they have a ton of huge carries, they have a ton of big names, and this is a guy who can be that consistent rock for them in the jungle, have another great season, prove he's the best jungler in North America once again, and hopefully do some big things for Team Liquid, whether that means LCS titles, whether that means having a good performance at MSI, or whether that means making it out of groups at Worlds. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. This is my Western jungler tier list, rating every single jungler in the LCS and the LEC from top to bottom, all 20 projected starting junglers for the 2021 season. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like. Again, it helps me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm, and I would appreciate it. Let me know down below. What do you guys think? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What would you change? And what does your tier list look like? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about anything that I said in this video. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. Remember to check out Draft Buffs as well. But until then, peace.